and kill 7 seconds. But a flag's on the field, the ball's loose, and it's going back the other way. It was picked up, and it's taken in by DJ Hardy. Game over. Northside calls it.
Live from Orlando, Florida, you're listening to The Sports Scene with Jesse Ough.
Oh, lick a turkey and call me Nancy. Yep, it's me, Jesse Ough. Welcome, everyone, to The Sports Scene on iHeartRadio and iHeartRadio podcast, presented by First Bet and also presented by Sports Fluent Media. We've got a great show for you. Our special guest is one of the voices of the West Coast Conference on ESPN Plus and a host on 95.7 The Game in San Francisco, Oakland, and San Jose. Our old friend of the show, Evan Giddings, joins me in about 30 minutes. But first, please welcome back your favorite color analyst and mine, Mr. Alvin Del Day. Always good to have you with me, AD. And before we get into our top 5 sports stories for the week, you know I have one question for you, my brother. The question is, it is illegal to do what in French vineyards?
Walk with shoes on.
That is a great guess. Incorrect, but a very great guess. You got to think even more outside of the box. It is absolutely illegal to land a flying saucer in a French vineyard. So the aliens come down.
Yeah.
They would get arrested. They wouldn't even go to area, 51?
51, yeah.
Yeah.
Right
they
after
just
that,
would get arrested by the French officials once France has them. Oh, boy. All right, here we go. You ready for our top 5 sports stories?
Let's get into it.
All right, we're going to start with our number 5 sports story. Let's go into some MLB stuff real quick, because as MLB spring training begins and opening day approaches for the 2024 season, there are several notable free agents that are still unsigned, marking a slow developing offseason. While some signings occurred in January, including Rhys Hoskins to the Brewers, Josh Hader to the Astros, and Justin Turner to the Blue Jays, notable names like Cody Bellinger, Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, and JD Martinez remain unsigned, along with other top free agents. Recent signings include Carlos Santana with the Twins, Gary Sanchez with the Brewers, Clayton Kershaw staying with the Dodgers, and my favorite, Jorge Soler, is joining the San Francisco Giants. We're still going to suck, though. Ahmed Rosario heads to the Rays. Tim Anderson just signed a deal the other day with the Marlins for 1 year, and Gio Urshela to the Tigers, highlighting ongoing roster adjustments across the league. But sort of a slow offseason after Yamamoto and Ohtani signed both with the Dodgers. Nothing's really happened. So I really don't think that we're going to go a full season without seeing these guys play, because obviously JD Martinez has been one of the top designated hitters in the last 10 years. Scott Boras, the agent, is the guy who represents a lot of these people. I don't understand why he doesn't have them sign yet. Like, they're not on. Blake Snell is a former Cy Young winner, and he's still a top 5 pitcher in the entire league. So I don't understand why he hasn't signed. Neither has Cody Bellinger, which is like one of the home run hitters of like this generation. Also was a former MVP as well with the Dodgers. So it's kind of weird why these guys have not signed. I think it's mainly an agent thing, but still, nonetheless, would really love to see a little bit more happen before opening day, because baseball is a sport that's dominated by the stars, and if the stars aren't signing, what the heck are we doing, guys? Anyways, we're going to go into our number 4 sports story. Charlie Woods, the son of Tiger Woods, faced a challenging round during a pre-qualifier for the Cognizant Classic, shooting an 86 and taking a 12-on-1 hole, which thwarted his hopes in advancing to the Monday qualifier. Despite not making any birdies and facing early struggles, particularly on the 7th hole, where he encountered water hazards, Woods remained composed throughout the round, and his performance contrasted with Olin Brown Jr., son of PGA Tour winner Olin Brown, who shot a 72. The pre-qualifier, which required a $250 entry fee for players without tour status, proved to be a tough test for the young golfer, reminiscent of Tiger Woods' early experiences in professional golf at a similar age. And we saw Tiger Woods pretty much came into himself. So we have no doubt that Charlie Woods is going to keep that thing rolling, and he'll make it to the PGA Tour one day. There's simply no doubt in that. All right, let's get into our number 3 sports story. We're going into women's basketball for you, Alvin. Number 1 ranked South Carolina secured a share of their 3rd consecutive SEC regular season championship with a commanding 72-44 victory over Alabama, marking Coach Dawn Staley's 600th career win. Despite the absence of top scorer Camila Cardoso due to soreness, the Gamecocks maintain their dominance, extending their SEC record with their 44th regular season league win and their 56th consecutive home victory. I really hope I didn't just do something there to that team that I shouldn't have done. After a slow start from both teams, South Carolina found their offensive rhythm, propelling them to a decisive 22-5 run in the second quarter. The Gamecocks defense stifled Alabama, holding them to just 5 field goals and 15.6% shooting in the first half, Alvin, ultimately securing their 22nd win in the series under Staley's tenure. Ashlyn Watkins led South Carolina with a double-double of 14 points and 10 rebounds, while Jessica Timmons paced Alabama with 20 points. Hey, the Gamecocks are more disjointed on offense without Cardoso to dominate down low, but they'll need her to be ready and focused when they try to go for their second straight SEC tournament crown and another run to the Final Four next month. But Dawn Staley, Alvin, just success anywhere she's gone, in college herself, then in the WNBA, and now back in college. She's just a bona fide winner, right?
Yeah, it's a phenomenal way to end Black History Month, honestly. What Coach Staley's been able to do over the last, 5 years, I think is incredible. But more so, I think it's nice to see it in college, because in college, there's such turnover, right? In the pros, you have a good group of gals that you can kind of galvanize around. You know who your stars are. You said it already. And in professional sports, the stars drive it. In college, you're going to have maybe a second year, third year be your star, and you have to kind of ride those coattails. And then next year, it's a completely different team. So I like how she's been able to maneuver around the intricacies of that season of this new team. And I hope they go on a phenomenal run in March.
Undoubtedly, they're either going to have to meet up with Iowa again, or LSU's having a great season. Virginia Tech's house having a really good season. So, we might get a rematch of the Final Four that we saw last year is what my hope is. But I think the Dawn Staley, South Carolina Gamecocks versus the Caitlin Clark, Iowa Hawkeyes.
That's what I want.
That could be the game of the year, and we're all rooting for it. All right, anyways, Alvin, our number 2 sports story. Teresa Gould, previously the deputy commissioner of the Pac-12 Conference, has been appointed as the new commissioner to navigate the league's uncertain future amidst significant upheaval in college sports. With only 2 schools remaining in the Pac-12 and a departure imminent for 10 others, Gould steps into the role as the first female commissioner of a Power 5 conference, facing the challenge of preserving opportunities for student athletes and ensuring the long-term viability of the conference. With her extensive experience in college sports administration, including oversight of championship events and rules compliance, Gould is tasked with leading the Pac-12 through a period of unprecedented change, with potential discussions about merging with the Mountain West Conference to reshaping the brand of the entire Pac-12. Despite the current uncertainties, the Pac-12 will continue to sponsor select sports, sign media rights partnerships, and produce live events and content from its headquarters in San Ramon, California. So, Alvin, I want your thoughts on this real quick. The Pac-12 kind of essentially rolled over and died, got burned into a million pieces, but maybe Teresa Gould can kind of resurrect this. Would you want to see them kind of merge with the Mountain West and make the Mountain West a Power 5 under the name of the Pac-12? Or would you want to see them steal some of the teams from the Mountain West and maybe like the West Coast Conference, you get Gonzaga in there or something and then make a new Pac-12 that way? What do you think?
Regardless, it's going to be a new Pac-12, but I personally like a merger better. I feel like you can take things from one conference and you guys could do more of a team building type thing and see if you can't get a conference that'll be sustainable. And I think the most difficult thing is to get into a dying star, a dying organization, and really, you're essentially a turnaround manager. That's what you're doing. You're trying to get a dying Pac-12, Mountain West. They're not necessarily dying, but they're not where they want to be as far as money's going, revenue streams, and they're not on linear television as accessible as they would like probably. So it would be nice to see if Teresa Gould, as the first female commissioner, to come in there and get these things cooking and be able to be that liaison to get that to be a fluid, money generating conference. And I think that'll be awesome, especially you've talked about it time and time again in previous seasons about how the previous commissioner, essentially he's living the good life right now, but at everyone else's expense. So it'd be nice to have someone come in with breath of fresh air who has the student athletes at in her mind, and she's going to make sure that she does right by them. So I'm excited to see how this thing turns out.
Yeah, George Kliavkoff, lock him up, throw away the key. Actually, no, Larry Scott, lock him up, throw away the key. You can let George Kliavkoff visit him once a month. That's my whole take on
Once a
that.
month?
Larry Scott.
No, son.
I'll give him once a month, yeah. Anyways, Alvin, our number one sports story. What do you call a bear with no teeth?
Toothless, like the dragon?
Okay.
There's
Also
no
kind
shot.
of a good guess, but no, you love these. I'm surprised you didn't get this. What do you call a bear with no teeth? A gummy bear.
Gummy bear. Yeah.
Duh.
As soon as I said, I was like,
I know.
Gummy
You
bear.
had
That's
it, and
crazy.
then you just smoked it. All right. Well, I wish we
Yeah.
could get into that more, but stay tuned. Our real number one sports story is coming up when we return. And now we're back here on the sports scene for our second segment. Alvin, the NBA All-Star issues won't be solved at a media hospitality event on the other side of the midnight hour, but that didn't stop NBA writers and NBA social media chatter from tossing around ideas aimed at improving the fan experience and creating a better product for the league on Saturday and Sunday nights. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver has a team of people doing the same, and his frustration at the players' competitive ambivalence in Sunday's All-Star game was apparent when he awarded the winning trophy to the East, saying, well, congratulations. And the pause in there was kind of like a silent scream, because answers aren't easy, especially when it comes to the Saturday dunk contest and the Sunday game. And there was just a plethora of things that specifically went wrong this weekend. And I want to take this segment to talk about what we can do better as an NBA and as an NBA fan base to promote the All-Star game, to promote the dunk contest. You know, three-point contest was great, but the real three-point contest was even better between Stephen Curry and Sabrina Ionescu, which we'll get into in a sec. But first off, Alvin, I want to start off with just the All-Star game, because Larry Bird and Charles Barkley, before the game, they held a players' dinner, and Larry Bird and Charles Barkley said, you know, you guys should really take pride in this. You know, we used to play hard against each other. I want you to go out there and I want you to play hard and put out a good product for the NBA, because you are what are selling the NBA essentially. And what did they do? Not that. And the game was just so unwatchable and so bad, and so it didn't really seem like anybody really cared at all. And that's the worst part
Well, they
about
don't.
where we've gotten in the NBA All-Star game, right?
Yeah, but they don't. You gotta. It's twofold, because you gotta think Dr. J was there in that meeting as well. Larry Bird, Charles Barkley. You gotta think that's Jordan era. They're trying to essentially beat out tennis, baseball. They're trying to become the household thing you watching. The contract to those times nowhere near where it's at today. So now you gotta think, like, now we're the trust fund babies of the NBA. You have the guys who are really working hard to establish a level of wealth, and then you have the generation that was after that really tried to, you know, grow that, and then you have the trust fund babies who are just born into buku bucks, and you're getting $200 million contracts. Like, you don't need it the same way. So I think that's the first part, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing, but you have to figure ways around it. I think the biggest thing with the All-Star game, you have to get back to what really works, and that's incentives. You can't have, okay, we want you guys to play hard, and then you go over there, you could rupture an Achilles, you could tear ACL, and then now you're done for the season on a game that doesn't matter. Versus, there's a couple different theories out there. You could have it where if the conference wins, if the West versus East, if East wins, they get home court advantage, something like that, where it's like it's something. You could have a foundation, a charity event. You could have a couple different things. But personally, what I think would really work is I would take the All-Star game and you shrink that thing down to 4 or 5 minutes, just because you still want to have an All-Star game, quote unquote, right? You want to have the All-Star game. You have about 4 or 5 minute quarters. But the biggest thing to catch is you have King of the Court. You have like a one-on-one segment where you can call out guys and you can just get to work. Just very similar to what you see, guys, those YouTube videos of guys putting in work in the off season. You got King of the Courts during the Olympic years where you got KD taking one-on-ones and guys are really working. 3 dribble maximum, and get to work. And instead of it just being in UCLA and open runs, you actually have this on all-star stage. So now you could really showcase that talent, because going up and down the court, you have a lot of games. And we've talked about how the 65 game minimum for guys trying to, win those accolades and get money. You still, there's so much going on. The All-Star game's not cutting it. Getting it there is good for a contract, but you're not trying to show out when you're there. But one-on-ones, king of the court, horror, stuff like that, like fun games like that, you don't need to, you're not risking injury. You're just showcasing talent and skill. I think that's where we need to push the All-Star game.
Yeah, I guess if money is the answer, and I'm not sure how well that would sit with fans, though I think there are whispers around the league that stakeholders have explored such a thing, then I think it should be explored because according to the collective bargaining agreement between the players and the NBA, the players on the winning All-Star team each get $100,000 and the losers get $25,000. But I think players seem to respond for a $500,000 incentive for winning the in-season tournament. So, the ideas for this need to be realistic. A one-on-one event sounds promising, but buy-in would be difficult. I think scrapping the game, an idea that I've kind of tooted for a sec after more thought about it, isn't really an option either. But
yeah, you can't just scrap the game. That's just it's too much stars in one place.
Exactly. So in that aspect, maybe you go about doing a 3-on-3 round robin tournament where you have, multiple different baskets going and it's like a king of the hill. And then if you win, you get $500,000. You come in second, you get, $400,000. You structure it that way. But I think a 3-on-3 tournament with, based on how players and people, vote, I think that could be a viable option.
Another thing too, realistically, because we'll talk about, Sabrina and Steph's 3-point contest. I think more co-ed stuff would work as well. Like you talk about that 3-on-3, you have, just based on voting, you could have fans vote and try to create teams. And then you have to have a guard, you have to have a mid skill, and you have to have a big. But then you have from WNBA, and I think they should really focus on making All-Star Game a collective thing. It's not just NBA, it's WNBA as well. And I think that would also get more excitement just based off what we've seen from Sabrina Ionescu and Steph Curry's little bout.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, the other thing that's not working is the dunk contest. It's stagnant. It can be reviewed. I like the addition of the G Leaguer and viral dunk sensation Mac McClung. That worked last year. And even though he had some nice dunks this year, it didn't elevate the event. And that's not McClung's fault. He searches for creative dunks. Let's also acknowledge the players have stretched the boundary of human gravity to its limit. They've jumped over objects, both inanimate in cars and animate in people, and 720-degree dunk is definitely unrealistic. So the larger problem, I think, with the dunk contest is the visibility of the field. The actual all-stars that used to participate in the dunk event, and give Boston's Jaylen Brown credit for his participation Saturday, but it's been a decade since an all-star even entertained the event. And Silver has said that he can't force a player to enter the dunk contest. Okay, fine. That's where the NBA Players Association needs to step in, because the new NBA Players Association Executive Director Andre Iguodala, a former player, needs to implore his members. If Silver needs to coerce with a money prize, discuss that. You have more money than God. You're the NBA. The winner receives $105,000. And the game's best dunkers and high flyers need to reconsider their lack of involvement. That's Ja Morant, Anthony Edwards among them, and, Morant could do the league a solid here. It would help him and his case out. We're not that far removed from Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon producing a worthwhile dunk contest, right? So there are ways to do this.
But what you said, that Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon, because Aaron Gordon was a guy that I thought he had 2 years back-to-back where he was giving it his all. He has to win one of those to make it worthwhile. And I don't mean it as in like, you have to give him one. It's just that you have to pick your battles. You understand that a guy like Aaron Gordon he's showing out, he's doing all this stuff. If he doesn't win, or he didn't win, and then you see after that, he's like, I'm not doing any more dunk contests, man. Like, I don't even know what I need to do to win. So when you have a guy that was genuinely giving it his all, and then he doesn't win, and he kind of shoots the foot of the dunk contest, you already have guys like LeBron that's not doing it. You already have your A-listers that weren't doing it. And then when that happened, I feel like it was just a slippery slope from down there. So it's difficult to get the A-listers, especially because you talk about the face of the league. The league is older. You still got LeBron as top 5 selling jersey. Steph Curry's definitely not known for banging on people. Anthony Edwards was shooting left-handed hook shots. So who's going to be the guy? Jaylen Brown, that was fun. And I love what McClung's been able to do. You got a couple of G Leaguers in there that are coming in. And I think that's probably going to be the next thing is really understanding that, all right, like if you guys don't want to do this, we're going to have to get tricksters. We're going to have to get globetrotter type guys that are internet sensations that can pull a different crowd to the dunk contest or to the All-Star game. You're going to have to get different celebrities to do this dunk contest. Because I think as far as the NBA players go, it's just not, they don't want to do it. And it's a lot to ask. Hey, I get the contracts. I know they're making a ton of money, but you got to understand, like, as an athlete, your goal is to win a championship. Like, I'm not here to win. Like, I'm not taking that to the bank, and no one's saying, okay, you know what, LeBron's better than Jordan because he has more All-Star wins than he. No one's thinking about that. So, like, athletes know that too. So you at this point, you kind of got to start making them, like, fear of missing out. Get some TikTok sensations, some YouTube sensations. Because if you go on YouTube, you will see some high flyers doing some crazy stuff. So I feel like at this point, you got to go get a couple of those guys like McClung, guys that are really hungry to do it, and have them be creative. Because at this point, it seems like we've seen every dunk that NBA players are trying to do. So it'd be nice to have, you know, a YouTube sensation that's been doing these crazy dunks, dunk over Taco Fall or dunk over Giannis, and have some crazy thing. And now everyone's buzzing about this guy, and he's brought back kind of like McClung was. So I think that needs to be explored a little bit more. Just because if the athletes don't want to do it in the NBA, then we got to find a way to keep this thing going.
Yeah, absolutely. And the final thing I want to talk about in this segment, Alvin, it's the three-point challenge. Sabrina Ionescu lost the three-point challenge to Steph Curry, but she did so dropping 26 points, which equaled the winner of the men's NBA contest. Curry dropped 29 points in the victory, making the last 4 shots to take the win, but it was a close one. And Ionescu still matched the number of points put up by three-point contestant winner Damian Lillard. She said, quote, "I think a night like tonight shows a lot of young girls and young boys that if you can shoot, you can shoot. It doesn't matter if you're a girl or a boy. I think it just matters the heart that you have and wanting to be the best you can be." By the way, Ionescu put Curry on his toes starting out hot. Curry said he had flashbacks to Ionescu breaking the three-point competition record last summer, a record that Ionescu still holds. But for both, it was a moment to showcase the respect between both men's and women's basketball. And for Ionescu, the loss is cause for a rematch. So obviously, you know, I think Steph Curry was the perfect person to do this event with because, you know, if he were to lose, he would have been like, yeah, like he would have actually taken, you know, a lot of men in men's basketball have ego and everything. But if Steph lost, he'd be like, look, like the women's game is more refined. It's all about fundamentals. A lot of them are better shooters than most of the guys in the NBA right now. And he would have been the perfect person to do that for the WNBA. And I really respect him for it. And I think Ionescu was absolutely fantastic in that. She kind of got screwed that she had to go first and not second. But
of course she's gonna get screwed. Like this stuff.
But I think at the same time, you get yourself a rematch. You do Steph and Sabrina versus Dame and Caitlin Clark. What do you think?
I think we do younger. I think
really?
Honestly. So first off, I think in general, huge success because I'm a huge proponent of mixing the All-Star competition. I don't think it should just be NBA then women. No, I think because that gets more eyes to both organizations and everyone eats. A high ties raise all boats. So I think that's something that we need to really focus on if you're the NBA, trying to get a bag and trying to get eyes on this All-Star game, first and foremost. Second, I think that we talk about that where you have Sabrina, Steph, that rematch, and then whoever wins that three-point contest, they're on the men's. And from there, I think Sabrina or Caitlin Clark is 1,000% going to be a high flyer as far as 3 points go when she gets into the league. So I think that'll be nice. For the men, you got to kind of earn that spot. I'm thinking Dame, I'm thinking Trey, but whoever wins that 3-point competition that day, that game, they get to line that up. And then you put them
with Caitlin Clark and they face off against Sabrina and Steph.
Busy.
That would be
Get busy,
mayhem for a whole day.
That'd be
insane. I mean, I guess, Steph does move the needle, though. So it would make sense that he wouldn't have to even participate in the three-point competition.
He's the GOAT. But I think going back to Sabrina Ionescu's point, I don't think in the loss she did. No, I think Sabrina Ionescu, what she showed a lot of people that it's a human experience. Basketball is a game that it doesn't look at color, doesn't look at gender, doesn't look at anything. If you can hoop, you can hoop. And she got 26. She shot from the NBA three-point line. And for those who you don't hoop, you see that high school line? If you're shooting from there, that's a mid-range jump shot. Take 3 steps back and see how small that goal looks. And you try to do exactly what Sabrina did and hit 26 shots. And when you hit 15, understand how good of a shooter Sabrina is. So I think hats off to Sabrina for going out there and competing. And I love the grace that they have. And I think that's just so good for the sport. And they're pushing the game forward for sure.
100%. Hats off to Sabrina. Absolutely salute her. And we're looking forward to the WNBA season here on the Sports Scene.
Man.
Evan Giddings is going to join us to talk about the Super Bowl loss for the 49ers and some stuff coming up for the Warriors next. He's our 49ers and Warriors insider out on the West Coast for 95.7 The Game. He's up next here on the Sports Scene. Welcome back to the Sports Scene, ladies and gentlemen. We are joined here in our third segment by the man that is a host on the West Coast for 95.7 The Game and Odyssey Sports. He's a play-by-play with the West Coast Conference on ESPN+, soon to be a play-by-play in many other places on more than just ESPN+. He's doing basketball for St. Mary's. He's going to be doing baseball for Santa Clara. He's everywhere, and we love seeing him and his success. Evan Giddings joins the show. Now, Evan, thank you so much for taking time out of your extremely freaking busy schedule to come on to the Sports Scene and chat with us. We really appreciate it.
Damn, Jesse, over the top, my guy. I mean, that was a lot, man. I appreciate you. Anytime, my man. I love chopping it up with you.
Yeah, I got to shout you out a little bit because, your success we love seeing because then we can get you on our show and it gives even more credibility to the sports scene. So, it's a little selfish reason, but having you on makes us sound better. So I'm just always happy to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, you were hosting a pregame show for the 49ers on 95.7 The Game every week before their games. What was that show called again?
The kickoff show, and of course the last one was on Super Bowl Sunday, which did not go as many 49ers fans had hoped.
So you were down in Las Vegas for a little bit, weren't you?
Yeah, we were on Radio Row for the last 3 days, so Wednesday, Thursday, Friday before the Super Bowl, and we're set up right next to Pat McAfee's set. Fox Sports Radio was right next to it. Yeah, I mean, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was coming through. We had NFL legends. Was lucky enough to be alongside Lorenzo Neal. So a couple of my favorite Chargers came by: Antonio Gates, LaDainian Tomlinson, Drew Brees was in the house. It was a who's who on Radio Row. It was my first time, and it was pretty damn fun.
Well, you deserve to be there, but 100%. Hey, so since the last pass of the Super Bowl, when Patrick Mahomes threw that touchdown to Mecole Hardman, and then I honestly couldn't tell you what happened in the aftermath. I originally couldn't tell you who caught the pass. I left the bar I was at the second the ball hit his hands. But since that last pass, I've actually surprised myself. Someone might anticipate that I may have gone through the 7 stages associated with grief, particularly since it was the third heart-shattering Super Bowl of my fandom. And it's been excruciating every time, but alas, no, I'm not even stuck in denial. It happened, we lost, but for once, I've actually accepted it. I had my moments of despair, but overall, I was kind of looking forward to a long break from the game, a chance to breathe, reset, come back ready for next year. But as of this last week, of course, the crushing avalanche of social media began, and now I'm all over the Twitterverse and the Xverse, and I need to get your opinion on some of the things that people out there are saying, because a lot of things that I see, I think are BS of what people are saying, and I could come up with reasons against them, but I want to see if you, as our resident 49ers insider, can come up with reasons against them or for them. So the first one I got for you is that everyone's saying that the Warriors, or not the Warriors, that everyone's saying that the 49ers should not have fired Steve Wilkes and that Steve Wilkes was a scapegoat. What did you think about that?
Steve Wilkes should have been fired after week 7.
Thank you. Boom, my guy.
Should have been fired after the Vikings game in which he got undressed by the head coach in a fashion I've never seen in a midseason team that's competing for a Super Bowl. Now, does that mean that Steve Wilkes is the one at fault? No, I would still agree that Kyle Shanahan is, because he should not have hired him in the first place. Steve Wilkes should have never been in Santa Clara, and that is a decision that falls squarely on the shoulders of one Kyle Shanahan. So, should Steve Wilkes have been fired? Yes. Should he have been hired in the first place? No. And Kyle Shanahan is in the center of all of it.
Okay, next one I'm seeing is that Kyle Shanahan should have kicked off in overtime. You want the ball second.
So, in the moment, I thought he should have deferred. But after his explanation, I thought, well, I could see it either way. It's a coin flip. Obviously, the results dictate, the winner gets the spoils. The loser's got to take his ball and go home. But when I saw the inside the NFL footage of the Chiefs erupting in joy as if they had already won the Super Bowl when the 49ers planned to take the ball, that's the wrong decision. Like, they gave the Chiefs a jolt of energy that they did not have previously. It was almost like they shocked them with the defibrillator and said, here is your chance to go down, get 6 points, win this game. And unless they came up with 7 on the opening possession when they didn't, then it was the wrong choice. So as much as I'd like to sit here and say, they could have been, they could have didn't. No, history's going to look back as that being the wrong choice by Kyle Shanahan. I don't think it cost him the game, but it certainly was not the right one.
So I love that. I absolutely love that. You know why? Because I would say the same exact thing. If you look at their sideline and you see guys erupting in joy, there's been 3 guys in the history of the game that you don't give the ball to with the last possession in the game. Patrick Mahomes is now one of them, Tom Brady before him, and Joe Montana before him. It was widely known that those guys you just do not give the ball to last with the last possession of the game. They will beat you. There's always guys you don't want to have the ball in their hands at the end of the game. Those 3 guys, correct me if I'm wrong, are the guys you don't want having the ball.
No, Patrick Mahomes is inevitable. Like he was lined up like John Wick was when he found out his dog died. I mean, he called the Russians and said, I'm coming for you, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's Patrick Mahomes in the fourth quarter overtime of a big game. And there's a reason why he's 15-3 in the playoffs. There's a reason why the only person that's ever beat him in the Super Bowl is one of those players that you just mentioned, Tom Brady. So, that's a tough pill to swallow if you're a 49ers fan.
I mean, I just think that there were just so many things that went wrong up until that point, and the 49ers should have known. You just don't give the ball to Patrick Mahomes. That was one of the most disappointing decisions of the game, but there were other factors in there that led up to everything. So now a few of the things that happened in this game, right? Like Dre Greenlaw blowing his leg out. You had Deebo Samuel get hurt. So one thing I saw, and this was actually earlier today, Larry Krueger said the 49ers need to cut Kyle Juszczyk. They need to cut Dre Greenlaw, and they need to trade Deebo Samuel. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I was actually in the room when Larry Krueger said these things at 95-7
No, you weren't, really?
Game. Yes, so I witnessed them live, was able to react to part of them.
Oh, wow.
And I did not agree with what he had to say.
Yeah.
In totality.
What? Yeah.
Well, you can either cut Greenlaw and Juszczyk and keep Ayuk, or you can trade Ayuk to keep Greenlaw and Juszczyk, along with a few other players. But you don't do all 3 of those things, in my opinion, because all 3 of them are integral to their respective spots. And you're probably going to have to choose, whether it's this year, whether it's next year, to keep 1 or 2 or 3 of your big pieces or let them walk, because you're eventually going to have to make room for a quarterback salary. But right now, you don't have to make all those decisions. So while the 3 he laid out are things that very may well could happen and come to fruition this offseason, all 3 of them, I don't see it.
I don't either. I think if anything, you have to give Brandon Ayuk that contract. You had that $38 million in cap space laying over to this year now. So you get that cap space in your cap salary this year.
Yeah.
I think you honestly have to pay Brandon Ayuk because with this, he was 7th in total yards this year, in like 30th in receptions, which is an unbelievable stat alone in the National Football League. But at the same time, you got to see what he can do with more of the target share. Now, what I'll say is Debo he got hurt in that third quarter. He didn't play most of that third quarter in the Super Bowl. And he got hurt the game before when the 49ers were playing the Detroit Lions. He's been pretty injury prone last couple of years in the league. He did get his big contract, but I think you inevitably have to give Brandon Ayuk the money because it might come to a certain point where you might have to decide between Debo or Brandon Ayuk. But at least you want to have that problem, right? You would rather have that problem than give Brandon Ayuk away to someone else and then he becomes the number 1 wide receiver in the National Football League because he's faster than most of the other wide receivers in the National Football League, gets more yards after the catch, and he can block on runs downfield like a linebacker.
Number 1, I think you're right that Brandon Ayuk was the most efficient receiver in football last season.
Yep.
I think you're wrong that you have to keep him.
What?
Now there are multiple examples of teams moving off of their number 1s or number 2s, however you perceive Ayuk.
Okay, yes, the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah, all right.
Well, you got Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Stephon Diggs. Minnesota won 13 games, I believe, the year after he left, or 2 years after he left to Buffalo. And then I guess the example you wouldn't want to fall into, which I don't think the 49ers apply to, would be A.J. Brown from Tennessee to Philadelphia. So Tennessee was not in a place where they were going to compete anyways. My thing is, and let me ask you this, what drives the 49ers offense?
Christian McCaffrey.
That means that you cannot have 2 wide receivers that make more than $50 million on your team if neither of them are the focal point of your offense. Cannot happen. Now, I think that if Ayuk stays, maybe it's someone like George Kittle that potentially moves away because I don't think they necessarily need all 3 of those guys making major sums of money. Maybe it's Deebo Samuel. To me, I think the most glaring way, or I should say the easiest way to get off of one of those 3 pieces, not named McCaffrey, would be to trade Ayuk because I think he's actually worth the most of those 3 guys. Do I think he's the best receiver on that team? Absolutely. He's a guy that can't go be a number 1 somewhere else. But I'm looking at his receiver class. I'm looking at what Justin Jefferson's going to command, what CeeDee Lamb's going to command. Brandon Ayuk's going to want more money than Deebo Samuel has. He might want $30 million a year annually as a wide receiver. That's something I cannot pay him for the long term, knowing I'm going to have to bring back Nick Bosa at big bucks next year. I'm going to have to restore the offensive line. I'm going to have to shore up my defense. I'm also, by the way, going to have to pay a quarterback in the next couple of years, and you're going to have to pay him a lot of money. So right now, even though Ayuk is a fantastic receiver, most efficient in football last year, he's growing, he's getting better, he's someone that I think becomes expendable for the 49ers based on how they operate offensively, and Kyle Shanahan liking to play the pass off the run as opposed to the run off the pass.
And I'm just hoping that it's not like a whole DeAndre Hopkins thing where the Texans trade him away and then they become the worst team in the league for the next few years. So that's more what I'm hoping. But I see what you're saying there. I think George Kittle's pass blocking is fantastic. And I just don't think we're using him as much of a weapon on the outside as we normally could. So, you know, like you were saying, maybe we don't need all those options. I just love Ayuk, and I think that, you know, he's has earned his contract. But don't you think that with all these other receivers, like the wide receiver market is going to be so flooded this summer that don't you think that that'll help the 49ers with Ayuk? Because Justin Jefferson's going to get the most money out of that group, right?
He's going to get the most money ever.
Yeah,
I would be willing to bet that he's going to get more money per year than Tyreek Hill did, who I think is the highest paid receiver.
He is. Yeah, you're right.
So it's not just a flooding of the market, but it's a reset market.
Okay.
And I think there's also ways you can go about replacing his production, whether it be through the draft, whether it be internally, whether it be another free agent. Now, you're not going to get a player as good as Brandon Ayuk, but the question is, do you really need Brandon Ayuk making $25 to $30 million to keep your offense in the same realm it currently is? Or do you expect someone like Brock Purdy, who will be a second-year starter, to take a significant enough of a leap to overcome whatever the fall-off of losing Ayuk would be? I think there's also a path where they keep him and they just figure things out financially. What I would become afraid of is if you give big money to Brandon Ayuk, you kind of hamstrung yourself in the future and you get yourself cap strapped in ways that you don't necessarily want to be. And then you could run into a position where, because of salary and other type of money movement, then you are not giving yourself the best chance to compete for the long term, as opposed to just zeroing in on like next year's got to be the year. Because what we saw from the Eagles is that it's very difficult to get back to the Super Bowl when you lose. And when you lose in the fashion that the 49ers did, my biggest concern is not necessarily Ayuk, not Greenlaw, not Juszczyk, not all these players that got to resign, but how do you mentally bounce back from a loss that is that cataclysmic? To me, that's the biggest challenge they face, because we saw the Eagles locker room fracture. We saw them burst at the seams midway through this season, and I thought it was a building frustration that carried over from their Super Bowl loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. So to me, the Niners are going to have to prove first that they are committed to each other, as opposed to trying to figure out who's going to get their bread.
Absolutely. And they got to shore up that offensive line. That's the final thing that they need to do. Maybe you live in the draft for that one. You can get a few picks for Brandon Ayuk. Anyways, Evan, moving on here, final part of this segment. You're the host of Warriors Wrap Up Live. You kind of do this podcast show after the Warriors game on Odyssey, 95.7 The Game. You've been taking it on the road a little bit, right? You've been at some bars doing this show. I think that's fantastic that, you know, you can get out with the fans and everything. You know, super happy that you're getting all those opportunities over there. It's super fun watching that and listening to that. Warriors Wrap Up Live. This is the man. He comes with the best takes, and he's always speaking whatever I'm thinking. So he's a speaker of the people. Quick question.
Yeah.
Warriors didn't make any moves at the trade deadline. Where are they going from here?
Only way to go is up. I mean, they don't really have a choice. I think that, number one, they're playing their best basketball of the season, so that's something to feel optimistic about. But number two, they don't have a first-round pick this year, so they couldn't tank. They weren't going to be able to fall and get the pick. They eventually found its way to Portland, I think. So they essentially decided to lean all in on this specific iteration, while also having multiple outs at the end of next year. So Klay Thompson's coming off the books. Chris Paul's coming off the books. Steve Kerr technically could be coming off the books. I think they find a way to make two of those three pieces work in the future, with Chris Paul being the odd man out. But if you're the Warriors for this season, you basically got hot at the right time, because I think they did save themselves from moving guys at the deadline. And now it's all about, all right, well, you're the 10th seed currently. How far can you climb? To me, I think the highest they could get to would be 6. The most realistic expectation for the Warriors is the 7 or the 8 seed, and then you give yourself 2 cracks to get into playoffs and then turn something into what the Miami Heat did last year, which was an 8 seed making a run to the NBA Finals. To me, if the Warriors get even close to sniffing the finals, that is a very successful year because of how this season looked like it was going, as well as I think the talent that they have on this roster. So they've got young pieces emerging, Kuminga, Podziemski. They've got old players still playing at a high level, Curry and Draymond. They've got a third man of the core in Klay Thompson that's refiguring his role and what he wants to be as far as his next stage of his basketball life. And I think the last 29 games are going to be absolutely fascinating, because this is a team that has experience, has youth, and has veteran poise. So it's really about how far they can go.
And Jonathan Kuminga has turned into an absolute star, I think, for this team and, you know, for the future. He can be their guy. And in the last 15 games, him and Steph having the highest plus minus of any duo in the league is kind of ridiculous. Also, since Draymond Green's return, they got the number 1 offense in the league and the number 6 defensive rating in the league. Before Draymond, when he was suspended, we didn't know how to play defense. We didn't know what defense was. Draymond, your guy.
He is.
Maybe.
Well, Draymond is, like most Warriors fans, I have a back and forth relationship with Draymond Green. But as a member of the media, I do appreciate how easy he makes our job, both interacting with him, in press conferences or post game, but also the content that he provides on a seemingly daily basis. So Draymond Green is good for business with what we do, and he's good for the Warriors' business because they need him. They need him both on both sides of the floor, as you so eloquently laid out. So I think the Warriors have leaned all in on Draymond Green being the 5 and being the force, and now he's got to repay them by not doing anything stupid like chokeholding an opposing player or backspinning into a specific Suns center. And if he can do that, I think the Warriors got a good shot. But if not, then they might be making some more moves this offseason. Draymond Green's got to keep his nose clean, that's for sure.
Hopefully the antics, as he calls them, can dial him back a little bit. We've been starting to see him creep back in just a tiny bit. So, every time he does something, I kind of hold my breath, but I'm sure we'll be fine.
He's only got one technical, Jesse. Only one technical since he's been back.
I'm going to start saying prayers. Now that you said that, find some wood. I need to knock on some wood. Evan, my broadcaster's jinx. Anyways, Ev, real quick before we get off here, where can we find you next? You're obviously doing Warriors wrap up for the rest of the season, couple games for the rest of the season. You're also doing Santa Clara baseball. Where can we find you?
Yeah, so 95.7 The Game, I work for Steiny Guru. That's our midday show, 10 to 2. I do Warriors this week every Saturday morning, 9 to noon, as along with the pre- and post game like you're talking about for Warriors game. So tap in there. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, at eGiddings10. I pretty much post everything that I do. And then if you feel like tapping into some West Coast Conference spring sports, I got 20 baseball games coming up for Santa Clara and San Francisco. And I look forward to that as well, taking me through the end of the spring and into the summer. So I appreciate you having me on. You got a great platform. You grind. You work hard. It's really cool to see you're doing your thing. And so I'm glad that you're able to let me be a part of it.
That's our Bay Area brother, Evan Giddings, on the sports scene. One more segment coming up in a sec. And now we're back here on the sports scene for our final segment, everyone. We're going to go into one of our favorite games. It's called Start, Bench, Cut. I'm going to give Alvin 3 players, 3 teams, 3 people, 3 foods to choose from. He's going to start one like he's the GM. He's going to bench one, or like, I guess, more like a head coach. He's going to start one. He's going to bench one like a head coach. And he's going to cut one like a head coach. All right, Alvin, you ready for this?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Your first one. Start, bench, and cut. Let's go Kawhi Leonard, Giannis, and Kevin Durant. What you got?
Ooh. I'm probably starting Giannis solely because, unfortunately Prize Picks is going to mess us up in Florida. But I will say that he's hit for me consistently. So I'm going to start Giannis. Oh, man. Between Katie and Kawhi, because Kawhi, defense, not even close. But then Kevin Durant, his ability to kind of just give you a bucket whenever you need it. That's – and not to say Kawhi's not a bucket like that, but I just can't fathom saying cut Kevin Durant. So start Giannis, bench KD. Unfortunately, I got to cut Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, I was actually going to say the same exact thing because obviously if your nickname for the NBA has the word freak in it and you are the Greek freak, you got to be starting for me. The freaks start. The freaks are always starters for me. And also, I would say that Giannis is a top 3 player in the NBA right now, and he's been a top 3 player in the NBA for the past 5 years. Obviously, Jokic is the favorite to win the MVP this year because Joel Embiid is now out, assumingly for the rest of the season, which is why I think they brought in Patrick Beverley. But that means Giannis is going to finish number 2 in the voting for the MVP this year. So I'm going to start Giannis. I'm benching Kevin Durant because he's a top 5 player, I think, of all time. And even if he isn't a top 5 player in the league this year, I think he's a top 5 player, with discussion of all time. He's definitely top 10 ever. So he's got to be on the bench. I'm cutting Kawhi specifically because of how injury prone he is and nothing else. I think you can make a case to start Kawhi over Kevin Durant here, but I just want to know my guys are logging minutes, and I think I'll get the most minutes out of Giannis, the second most minutes out of Kevin Durant, and I get the least amount of minutes out of Kawhi if I'm looking at an offensive-only team. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, availability is the best ability. And, like, you hear that a lot. Like, that is, like, a really common phrase, and it holds true because, you could give me 40 points, but you're going to play every other month. What am I going to do with that?
Yeah,
and that's not to say he's not, like, as part of it, he's not faking it. But at the same time, KD came back off an Achilles, and he's still giving you 25 and 10, seemingly. That's tough.
Yeah, that is very true. Okay, here we go. Start, bench, cut. We're going to go with LeBron's 3 best teammates. So start, bench, cut, Dwayne Wade, Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis.
Start D-Wade. You already knew that. Kyrie and AD. Wow. Based on how they performed while they were with them, it's not even a question. AD's getting cut. Kyrie's on the bench. Solely because if I was objectively saying it, I would actually have to start Kyrie over Wade just based off of what they accomplished. I'm not going to bring it up again because what happened when Kyrie and LeBron got busy and they did something that we've never seen before. That was a rough time. Not for me though, but you can't argue that. And then AD,
you just love bringing up 3-1, don't you?
Bro, I mean, dog, that's the crazy. You've never seen that. You've never seen that in the finals.
We literally came back from 3-1 in the series before against the Oklahoma City Thunder and Kevin Durant, James Harden,
in the finals,
Russell Westbrook, and Serge Ibaka was on that team as well.
Look it up right now. Look up finals down 3-1. What the record is?
I'm just saying. You said it's never happened.
And then there's
finals.
One.
Okay,
in the
sure.
Finals. Yeah, I said
yes, but
finals.
I'm saying the series before
finals.
in a Western Conference Finals,
That's
it literally happened. We came back from 3-1.
Yeah, but on the biggest stage, for the next, I would say 2-3 years, when Kyrie did a dribble down to the post and turn around jump shot, you woke up in cold sweats. That's exactly what happened to you, at least.
No, you know why? Because
you know
why I didn't give you cold sweats? Because that summer on July 1st, 2017, I got an alert on my phone that says the Golden State Warriors are signing Kevin Durant. And I said, you know what? All is okay with me. I'm going to be fine for the rest of my life.
That's great. But, Draymond Green's not fine because on his show, like a year ago, he talked about how that Game 5 still haunts him. Yeah, it's nice to go win some more championships, but there's something about losing in those moments that will stick with you. Granted, you could go win some more chips. You're happy about that. But in the back of your mind, you still see Kyrie with that untucked jersey, pound dribble to the right, spin around on the dime, cash money, come back untucked with that tray ball. All right, I'm sorry. But yeah, I would have to go Dwayne Wade starting, Kyrie getting benched, and then AD got to get cut because it's just not even close. Like what D-Wade, LeBron learned how to win essentially with D-Wade's mentorship. He took the reins from there and took that thing to the moon. And then he goes to Cleveland. Cleveland, this is for you, right? And then after that with Anthony Davis, it's to the point now it's like Anthony Davis is supposed to be the dude. LeBron's supposed to be pulling a Dwayne Wade. He's supposed to be on the back burner, and that's not the case. So I think that's what gets him cut.
I'm going to throw some fuel on the fire here and say
Let's do it.
that I'm starting Anthony Davis because I didn't say that it's just a LeBron teammate, but it doesn't have to be how he's playing when he's playing with LeBron. Anthony Davis is, of these 3 guys, he's the only one on a top 75 team ever. He's on the NBA all top 75 team ever. So starting Anthony Davis, I'm benching Dwayne Wade because I just can't even fathom cutting D-Wade. Like he literally handed off the reins. I think that's what happened in their first year in Miami together. It didn't work. Obviously they made it to the finals, but it didn't work because I think they were both kind of like, trying to do their thing as the top dog on the team. And I think D-Wade said, you know what, LeBron, this is your team now. I'm going to still get my buckets, but we're going to go as far as you want to take us. And I think as a superstar, in this league.
That's huge.
That is one of the smartest things you could do. And I think just because of that and knowing how to play with other guys on the team, like Shaq handed him the reins, he knew how to play with Shaq. He handed the reins to LeBron, won another couple championships there. He knew how to play with superstars on the team, which also meant he knew how to play with no one on the team because then he could be the superstar. So obviously, benching Dwayne Wade. I'm cutting Kyrie. Kyrie's got the best handle, I think, of all time. But
yeah,
I think pure scoring, domination ability, and the ability to play with the guys around you, Anthony Davis and Dwayne Wade have to be over Kyrie for me. So that's my start bench cut, and that's the situation. Yeah.
I could give it to you because they're all great. So it's like
they are.
But
they're all fantastic.
That's wild though.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go, Alvin. Start bench cut. We're going duo edition. All right. So Giannis and Dame, LeBron and AD, Tatum and Brown. All are very different.
Because I was gonna cut depending on who the duos were. I was like, Giannis and Dame got to go. They haven't done anything yet.
Yeah.
But I would say LeBron and AD, like that's obviously starting. They want to chip
100%.
together.
Yeah. Yep.
I would say because part of me wants to cut Tatum and Brown just because they've gotten there, but then and objectively they've lost to a Heat team that on paper they should not have lost to. Like they've lost to teams that they should not have lost to. They lost
the Warriors in the finals.
And it didn't. And it's not even like it just looked bad objectively. Like Brown, forced him left, and apparently he's not an NBA player anymore. Like stuff like that, where it's like
and Jason Tatum is like when you need him
forcing his shot
most, he vanished. He's the Avatar of the Last Airbender,
right? Like they stripped all the retirees away. Like you can't go back to none of them. Like none of the post avatars, he can't get to them. Like he can't get to. It was weird because in those moments. Never been in a game 7 with, the world watching and I'm going against the greatest shooter. Like, I've never been in that moment, but ideally you would think that with all that preparation, you get to that moment, you want to be able to execute. We've seen the greats do it. Granted, they've been those moments, they've come back. So if he can come back and stand up tall, then that'd be huge. We've seen that with LeBron. We've seen that time and time again. But right now, I might have to cut Brown and Tatum solely because I've seen them in those moments and they didn't execute versus Dame and Giannis. The coldest thing from Dame was him waving Paul George by from the logo. That was the toughest thing I've seen from that dude. That was so cold. Like that was cold. And then Giannis right now arguably is, one of the best players in the league. Him, Jokic, they're kind of tit for tat depending on the day, depending on the week, depending on the month. You're like, okay, it's either one or the other. So you have that, and you have Dame that's a bona fide closer, and talk about giving a superstar confidence. Shaq, I think, is he's the epitome of an OG because he's telling Giannis like you guys gotta figure this thing out, and you guys are being too nice. Like get this thing figured out because if they figure that thing out, man, that is terrifying because you got the freak and then you got Dame time, and that I don't know, man. That's not good for the league if those two figure that thing out. So I'd say start LeBron, AD, bench Giannis and Dame, and then Brown, Tatum. They got to be out of here.
I absolutely agree with you on that one. Final one, Alvin, for you. Start, bench, cut. We're going food edition. Things you can eat at a game. Start, bench, cut. Chicken wings, pizza, tacos.
Chicken wings, start, and lemon pepper, please.
Easily.
And then... I forgot the other one. I'm thinking about the lemon pepper. Rick Ross just entered the chat.
Yeah. So pizza and tacos.
And tacos. It just depends on my mood, honestly, because sometimes I'm really feeling a good pizza, like heavy. But then sometimes
necking a whole pizza hits by yourself.
So it's like, you feel me? So it depends on how much I drink that day, to be honest. Because if I feel like the more I drink, the more I'm inclined to a pizza. The less I drink, the more I'm inclined to a taco. So it really just depends what those drink prices are looking like. That's a game time decision.
Yeah,
but I'm thinking about bar none.
Yeah, I'm thinking about scrumptious tacos, like a carnitas taco will always beat any pizza for me, and that's what I'm sticking. Yeah. But chicken wings got to start forever and always. They have our heart, Alvin. Hey everyone, thank you, Evan. Thank you, Alvin, and thank you all for tuning in to the show on iHeartRadio and iHeartRadio podcast. You want a little more sports madness in your life? Well, tune back in on Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, or find us on whatever streaming platform that you use at 10 a.m. the same day. Also, subscribe to us on Sports Fluent Media on YouTube, and please rate, comment, and download the show everywhere else. And next week, we'll be back with a lot more sports talk, so stay tuned. Until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and we'll see you right back here on the Sports Scene with Jesse Ough, presented by First Bet.